One. Hello, ladies and gentlemen. It is your girl, Jay.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen.
With your boy. You're my boy.
Ascension. The Breakmaster.
And welcome back again to the #1 anime podcast / stream on the internet. I don't even know many other like anime podcasts like this to slander, so we can start a podcast war. That's usually what I do. I want to start something. I'm a very feisty gal. I always do that on my K-pop podcast. I say that we're the best K-pop podcast, and then I name a podcast that doesn't compare to us, but it's all in good fun. You guys know that.
Really? I love this dragging that we're doing here. Okay, I'm gonna go look around real quick. Then, that's the case.
I feel like I'm much more comfortable in the K-pop like fandom than I am in the anime fandom though. So like I'm like willing to have somebody drag me, but I feel like if an anime person dragged me, I'm like, what? Why? Even though I started it, but. That's me just playing victim. But hey, Break.
You can't back down. You can't back down. All right?
You know what? That's true. Come at me if you want. So, do you want to jump in to these episodes now, Break?
I'm not just gonna jump in. We're gonna dive in.
We're gonna dive in. I think that's a song. I think that's a popular song. I don't know, y'all. I'm really removed from music. So we're going to start off like we usually do with a cute little summary / discussion / I guess overall, review of the episode. I actually don't have many notes for this one. This is one of those episodes where we don't really see, we do see a bit of a, arbitration going on, but it's more focused on getting background about the world that, Death Parade takes place in and some of the rules behind, how arbitration and things like that work. So it kind of starts off with us following up on something that happened in previous episode where the dark-haired woman had been having these dreams about this kind of like children's storybook story, and she was kind of curious about where it was coming from. So she finds the actual storybook in this bookshelf of the dream she was having, and via that she kind of gets a flashback to her reading the story with her mom, and that's when she actually realizes that she's dead. So we kind of have that realization from her.
Yeah,
then
that was a bombshell.
Yeah, it was, honestly. And I was just kind of like, oh, okay, right in the beginning of the story, the episode, let's jump right into it. But you guys teased a bit
about that. Yeah, because like what's crazy about that is the fact that now she's back at square one again, because that was a problem the first time around. She knew she was already dead, so they couldn't really judge her, which is why they were like erased the memories to begin with. So now we're back at this point, but this time they don't know. So it makes you wonder what the heck's about to happen, especially considering later in the episodes we watched that she's getting more power.
Oh yeah, that's true. We do see her get additional power that kind of puts her a bit more on an equal level of Decim in terms of like her ability to be like an arbiter and arbitrate the souls that come into Quinn Decim. So that's very interesting. And honestly, that's really, really interesting that you pointed out. Yeah, we did learn in the previous episode that one of the reasons why they erased her memory is because she really early on knew that she was dead. And so I wonder how the fact that they don't know that she knows is going to play into like later episodes and how we find more about her. So essentially what happens is that like I said, the dark-haired woman, she finds this book, so she confronts Decim about it, asking if if it's his or he knows where it come from. And at first he's kind of like, I don't know, but then he mentions that it may belong to Quinn. So we learn that before Decim was the arbiter of the Quinn Decim, there was a person named Quinn who had run the place before him. So it's kind of cool because we got a little flashback where we go to when both Decim and Ginty have first started their arbiter jobs, and we meet Quinn when she used to own the Quinn Decim, and we kind of get a glimpse into one instance where Nona had them kind of observe Quinn arbitering two humans, two souls that had come down to the Quindecim. And in this, we also see that she gives them the little staff remotes that they have that allows them to sabotage arbitration matches, when they seem fit. So I don't even know how I feel asking you this, because I guess you already knew. But what was your first reaction when we heard about this Quinn character?
I was curious about what she's got, like what's going on with her. It's interesting that the place even called Quindecim, so it's pretty like named after them. Granted, Decim got his name from Nona, so obviously that's where the connection comes into place in the first place, which is interesting enough. So yeah, I mean, she in of herself is a very eccentric character. So I was like, okay, this is what we're doing, huh? And then she's not bad. I don't know. I wish we got to see a little bit more of her arbitration, because it's kind of like what already Decim's doing, but not really. Like I don't know. It's like we didn't really get to see enough of it, honestly. Oh.
Yeah, I agree. I know, like we actually see her, like, because the whole thing is that like she's moving on to go to the information bureau, so she's moving on for being an arbiter, but she actually like complains about it, and she was like, this is hard, so I'm really happy that I'm leaving. So I wonder how her feelings towards being an arbiter, how that played into how she was an arbiter. So yeah, I agree. I wish we would have gotten to see a bit more of like her style and the kind of things she does, from like what she tells the guests to get them to play the game, to like, how she observes, because you have like somebody like Ginty who kind of just sits there until like, he ups the ante, versus like Decim, who's a bit more involved. So I do agree. I wish we got to see it, but she does seem really, really cool. And yeah, about you pointing out the fact that it's like, initially I was like, oh, so Quinn of Quindecim. But then when we learn that, like, we see Nona being like, we're gonna call you, your name is Decim now. Like, basically it's like, okay, so what is actually going on? Like, this is very confusing. But yeah.
Well, actually, going back a little bit on this episode, there is 3 rules that arbiters always have to follow. And that is, arbiters must keep judging because there's a reason for being, that's their only reason for being, actually, which is the fact that they get created just so they can judge. They're all dolls, not actual people. That's the thing that we kind of find out here too. Arbiters can't die because it'll make them too close to human, and arbiters can't feel emotions because it's not in their nature to feel emotions. So, but then this episode, there's a lot more information that kind of comes out with this. But it's interesting is in why do we have a shortage of, like, I guess, arbiters? Because I feel like there's not enough arbiters for all the death apparently that's going on, right? So they're struggling to try to keep up with it all. But why don't they create more arbiters, seeing as they're just dolls, right? Or is there some type of requirement? Like, I'm curious, like, how this whole thing actually is like set up, and who really started this whole thing. Like, was it that old dude? Like, did he say, man, we arbiters all of a sudden? Let's just go ahead and make some people and see what this judgment can do. Because I mean, it just opened up a lot of questions when you're watching this episode, given that, again, they're all dolls.
And I definitely agree. I think that it's kind of interesting that if they have all these dolls, like you said, why don't they just, make a bunch of arbiters? But I think also there's the whole, we're kind of seeing, even 5 years into being an arbiter, Decim is still like in his training mode. Like, he still makes mistakes. And maybe it's because they want to keep a close eye on who they want to be able to train everyone. But, you have to have somebody who already kind of has a lot of experience doing it, and there's not enough people to train or something like that. Like, that's why they're being particular. But it's interesting you brought that up, because funny enough, when we kind of get to learn about Quinn and how she left her job as an arbiter to work at the information bureau, her and Nona are having a conversation, and we get more information, not just about arbitering, but about like the kind of world they live in. And so she mentions that at this information bureau, it's her job to condense memories that come in from humans. And so one cool thing that we learn there is that, like, it's her job to I guess we learn this later on. Well, at some point we learn, this is in a later episode. But anyway, so she also, though, similar mentions to Cass. Sorry, I'm trying to like go in order because like I feel like it's funner when we talk about it in the order it happened. So it could be like, and then this happened. But anyway, but kind of off of what you were mentioning, she does mention that people are dying at alarming rates, which makes her job very, very hard, because it's like, okay, we have these memories, trying to condense them. Oh, another person dies. And so it kind of is interesting because we heard Castra talk about this, a few episodes in the last batch of episodes we watched. So I'm really interested, the fact that they kept mentioning this, like, how is this going to become like a big plot? Like, when is this going to blow up in everyone's faces in a way that the arbiters that we see in these everyday episodes are going to start being affected? So yeah, I thought that was
I just realized something, but I'm gonna not say it yet because we're not there yet. I just realized something. I think I see why more deaths is actually happening then. Huh. That's pretty cool. That's a pretty cool tie-in they just did there, but I won't say anymore. Look, like I said, we have 3 more episodes to watch, and I'm pretty sure if you look around, you'll see a nice little hint. Is all. And what I'm saying right now will make a lot more sense later.
Yeah. All right. So another thing we learn is that arbiters forget their memories of the guests they judge. So we have like this scene opposite of the scene we get with Nona and Quinn, where the dark-haired woman and Decim are kind of just talking about, arbitration and things like that. And one of the things that we learn is that Decim, his kind of hobby, or the thing that kind of keeps him like busy and things like that, is that he likes to collect these dolls. So at first we just thought they were kind of just like these random dolls that he uses to freak out the people that come to the Quindecim, but we actually learned that they're actually humans. They're the bodies of humans that he had judged in the past. So what happens is that after they get sent to either reincarnation or the void, because they don't need their bodies anymore, they turn into these dolls. And Decim, we keep hearing this theme that he has a lot of respect for people who lived a full life. So he kind of feels like it's a waste, and it's kind of like disappointing for their bodies to just go to waste. So he keeps the bodies, and he kind of like dresses them up and things like that as a way to kind of like remember them, or what, not really remember them because he can't remember them, but kind of honor them in a sense. So that I thought that was really, really interesting to find out, because I feel like we went from thinking the bodies were scary because he showed them to freak out, the people he arbiters, and then thinking that they were just like, dolls. And now we're like, oh, they actually were people. So it's back to being kind of weird.
Yeah. What's cool too is I think one of the dolls he ended up like making to like showcase what he's trying to do, I think that was like the girl from the first episode, correct? They kind of like he dressed up. It looked like it was. Or was it the second episode?
Which character would that be? Can you just describe them a bit?
Because she had like a whole dress and everything, and I believe it was from the first episode. It was the the woman with that was supposed to be cheating but not actually cheating. Mm-hmm. I believe that's that one, but I'm not exactly sure. I still that was a person from beforehand, so he still has some memories of like that whole incident and everything. That's why he ended up like showcasing that. Yeah, I create these people because I want to try to honor them in some ways, even though you can't necessarily remember like everything that has happened, because the memories do go away after a certain period of time.
Mm-hmm. And it was interesting because it was just like, here we're like, there's this idea that like you mentioned, the 3 rules about like an arbiter, like, and their ability to like feel and things like that, but you kind of get this sense of like, even if it's not fully fleshed out, that Decim actually does have like these feelings, because even the idea of wanting to like honor humans during the flashback where we kind of see Quinn, we see an early Ginty and an early Decim into like their arbiter years or whatever, and we find out that arbitration that Quinn did, that Decim and Ginty oversaw, while Ginty used his sabotage thing, Decim didn't. And like one of the things is that he was really interested in what the humans were thinking, and it was kind of this dichotomy between him and Ginty, where Decim's like very interested in humans and honors them, while Ginty's just like, they're just stupid humans or whatever. So kind of like that my fave, but kind of like that kind of, oh, he's kind of having these emotions that you wouldn't really expect from an arbiter for humans, and it's kind of like already I feel like it's kind of setting up that he's going to be set apart in some way from the average person.
Definitely. I'm gonna jump in the comments real quick. Andy, I see you do have an idea what I'm talking about then, which is good then. I don't know if it's already showing it. I don't think it did yet, but I'm glad you are paying attention then. You're seeing that, because I didn't realize it too, but I was like, wait a minute, this is like, there's a clear connection. That's why this is happening. But again, I'll be quiet there. Also, believe I think it was towards the end of this episode. We do find out because there's this whole plan Nona's trying to do. It looks like, and it seems as though she's trying to uh implant or make these arbiters have some emotions. And she also believes that there needs to be two people judging because one person can't truly fully judge the whole situation. So she has this plan of trying to have these two together, have Decim actually have some emotion, because it seemed like she actually implanted some human emotions inside of him. We don't know how much, because it seemed like he's not. I mean, he's not always showing emotion, so it's like obviously there's very little in there, but it's there. So I don't know exactly what this whole plan is supposed to be about, like what she's trying to do exactly. But maybe she's trying to change the whole arbiter type of system that's happening. Maybe she's just trying to do it from the inside and trying to do a test to see how this whole thing is going. And also, it does seem like the old man does have an idea that Nona's doing something is a thing. Like, I haven't hanged out a bit, and he's like, man, you probably have something you're hiding from me. But then he just walks away. But you already know when someone says that, they know this. They know.
Yeah, right. Yeah, they're just trying to let you lead them to it before they, blow it up. But yeah, that was a part during the end. I think during the talk with Nona and Quinn kind of drops that, like, yeah, there's like a whole thing about like implanting human emotions into an arbiter, and I feel like it's like very obviously that they're alluding to Decim. So it's interesting because I think at one point Nona even straight out says, and it's very I thought it was interesting because it was very aligned in the kind of speech we hear from the dark-haired woman like plenty of times throughout the series. She says that arbiters don't know anything about death or dying, yet they get to judge the dead. And she talks about wanting alternative, or feeling that there needs to be alternative ways of judging, and she thinks it's interesting to have an arbiter have human judgments. So we see how that's like a one for one of how the dark-haired woman thinks. And so it's kind of like interesting that they ended up making her kind of an arbiter, because it's like it's such a one-to-one, like I feel like she idealizes what like it seems like Nona's trying to go for as well.
Yeah.
So yeah, it seems like they're trying to have
part of the reason why she's still around in the first place.
True.
And allows her to be able to do things that she's doing, because I mean, again, she should have been judged a long time ago.
That's true. Oh, and Ginty is still mad about it, because even in the beginning he was like complaining about having a human or whatever and not being able to, the ethics of not being able to judge something, which is funny because in this episode we see that Mayu from the previous episode, the girl who was the fangirl of the guy from the thing, she's not in the void or reincarnated. She's actually still at his bar. So he's trying to have a dark-haired woman of his own a bit, because it seems like he might be having issues with trying to judge her where she needs to go, or, he's trying to create a Decim, the dark-haired woman situation. So I thought I was so happy to see her. She's such a cutie.
Yeah. I mean, I think he is just having a lot of trouble because he's like, okay, I draw it out the darkness, yet why aren't you trying to, sabotage or sacrifice that person instead of sacrificing yourself? Because that whole idea or that whole situation really threw him all the way off. He didn't see that coming. He's like, a self-sacrifice? Like, huh? What's going on here? Like, I guess I need to know more. But then she's also annoying. So it's like, what am I doing here?
Yeah, I was just really excited to see her. But yeah, it's just like Ginty is such a complicated arbiter. That's why we stand. But yeah, so that was a really interesting point. So yeah, at the very end of the episode, post credits, we see that Nona is hanging with Castra, and it seems like there's two bodies or dead souls ready to come to to get arbitered. Is arbitered a word? I keep saying that, but I'm not even sure it's a word. Get arbitration. There we go. Get that arbitration. And it seems like she's bribing Castra, so a certain set of souls, dead souls, comes to.
They're special.
Yeah, they're special. So we do figure out like it's the very next episode, but like still, that was mysterious. So yes. So that was episode 7. Unless there's any other points you wanted to make, Break, I'm just going to jump back in the chat.
I will just say this: 7 through 9, flow perfectly together. It was crazy how this whole thing was set up. It was perfect.
True.
Like, we did it again.
we're so good at that. I feel like it's because we changed to 3 episodes. I feel like 3, all good things come in threes, so it's always like good, as like a stop and start point. But yeah, I was like, oh, this actually really, really works.
Yeah.
All right, I'm gonna jump in chat. Andy says it's interesting because Ginty looks down on Deckham for having the woman stay and not be judged, and now finds himself in his same situation. That's true. And you could tell it was like something eating him up inside with the way he was asking like the other arbiters about it in the very beginning. It's like, it's not that easy, Mr. Ginty.
The arbiter's like, what are you talking about? Like, huh? Like, just judge the sucker.
They're like, go. Andre says that old man is hella creepy. Have we heard his name yet? Because I just keep on calling him pink haired oldie.
I believe they said his name like once or so. I can't remember his name. All right, but I know they said it at some point. Maybe chat knows.
Chat.
Do you know what the old man's name is?
Put it in chat if you guys know. Let's see. Yeah, Deckham is known as Little Experiment. Yeah, and it's just so it's so interesting how we see, like, as we learn more, stuff that happened before is kind of more put into context, in terms of how, like, it seems like she's really, really like thinking back to when she's like, when he made that mistake with like arbitering the woman who the man thought that she was cheating. Like, it seemed like she was like, well, we all make mistakes. Like, she was annoyed, but it seemed like she was a bit like more of a mother about it. Like, we all make mistakes or whatever. And maybe that has to do with the fact that she knows that he's a bit different from your average arbiter, because she's
oh yeah,
put a little something in the sun, you know what I'm saying? So
oh yeah, I know what you're saying. I know.
But yeah. Oh, his name's Oculus Rift. Okay, that's his name.
Oculus Rift. That's the first thing that comes to mind when you hear Oculus.
Yeah. All right, so let's just jump into episode 8 and 9 because there's a lot to talk about here.
Yes.
A lot of stuff. So we're already from the jump. We get shaken because we see the scene where Deckham receives the memories from, the 2 souls coming down, to the Quinn Deckham that day. And he makes this like, he's really concerned, and we find out it's because he knows that based off the memories he's had, one of the guests has killed somebody. And that's like crazy because they've never gotten anything like that. And, we can infer that's kind of known as doing. Those were like the guests she wanted to come to the Quinn Deckham. So the guests for this episode are an older man who's also a detective named Tatsumi and a younger 22-year-old man named Shimada. And so off the jump, as usually, they don't really have any memories about what happened and how they got there, but they both know that they were going somewhere. That's the last memory they remember. And so off the bat, like after Deckham explains what happens to them, they're kind of like, F this, and they're trying to find a way to get out of there. And so while trying to find, like, they kind of split up to try to find an exit, and while trying to do this, Shimada, he looks into the bag that he had, that was when he entered the Quinn Deckham, and he realizes there's a bloody knife. So I'm gonna stop there. When you saw this, did you think murderer, or did you think they're setting us up for a bait and switch and somehow it's gonna be the detective guy that actually did the murder? Oh, you were just
I was already thinking straight up like, no, that boy did it. He looks too innocent. That's the whole thing, right? That's how they're gonna get you, because you're automatically look at the the detective guy because he looks all rugged and
that's true.
He's experienced. So you obviously think he might have killed somebody, but no. Look at the little boy over there. Look at him. Well, he's not little, but you know what I mean.
That's true. I mean, honestly, when he said he was 22, I was surprised because he was giving high school student energy to me. So I was like, oh, okay, a bit older than I thought. But okay, well, you're more on it than me, because I was like, maybe I was just being too skeptical. I was like, okay, they're gonna somehow turn this around or bait and switch it. Like, it's too obvious that he has like this whole bloody knife.
They didn't switch us though.
They did in a sense, but just not in the fact that like he was the one who killed somebody, like, in that fact. Well, I guess. Oh my God, they did kind of bait and switch us. You're right.
Yeah.
That was a bait and switch. Oh, okay. They just did it in a different way. Oh, you're right. But yeah, so basically they end up playing because Detective is as a detective, you know, he's very curious as to like why they're here, what's going on. And he thinks if they just go along with it, you know, they'll get more answers. Deckham also does like the whole showing them the dead bodies, actual bodies, thing too, but they end up playing. So interesting enough, the game that they get is air hockey. And I was like, okay. So the air hockey, it was first to 6 points. There are, you know, some rules and how they got to those 6 points, but for the most part, that's like the explanation we get. And we also see that the pucks all have body parts on them. Now, I thought this was interesting because this episode was a bit like Ginty's episode in that like it was regular kind of until it wasn't. Like, you know, it was just regular air hockey until Declan was like, y'all playing around too much. You know, we finna make y'all like feel some pain.
Hey. Air hockey is freaking crazy though. All right, I'm pretty sure you played air hockey. It gets intense. Okay, like,
it really does.
You trying to win, man? Shoot, I get like super intense. I'd be grabbing that freaking puck so hard. It'd be bad. I had arthritis freaking pains when they're
not arthritis. I had an air hockey table growing up, and 5 brothers and sisters. So you can probably guess it was World War VIII. But yeah. Ooh, okay. Sorry, I just read the chat. Andy said I took so many notes. Listen, you're vibing with us right now. We love a good student in Anime Club. Leanne said, I thought it was a red herring. It was a red herring, all right, just not in the way I expected. Yeah,
exactly.
That's true. That's why I love this show. But yeah, so we just start with them playing hockey. They're going back and going back and forth. You know, Tatsumi gets the first score, like he scores first, so it's kind of like this back and forth. And I think this is a similar thing that we saw throughout the other episodes, that when the one person scores, the other person gets like a memory / flashback. So after Tatsumi, the detective, scores, we see a flashback from Shimada. We find out he has a sister. We learn that his parents died when they were very, very young. You know, they keep playing. Then Shimada scores, which triggers a Tatsumi flashback. And we see a flashback of him coming home to his wife, Yumi, who was murdered. So we kind of get this story that like she was murdered, and then he became really obsessed with finding the murderer. So at that point, I was like, I'm scared. Like, I'm just really, really scared.
Don't be afraid, all right? Look, he's supposed to, he's a detective. He should be a good man, right? He should be a good man. So yeah, you still had to have hope. You still had to have hope until, yeah,
honestly. Gone. And that's why this show is so good, because it was just like, you're like, okay, he's whatever rage he feels, it's justified because it's like his whole wife is murdered. But then as we go on, it's like, wait a sec, maybe not like that. Like it's a bit, but yeah. So like I mentioned before, Decca mentions they're taking a long time, and it's taking like a long time for their memories to come back. And he kind of like relates it to like, oh, their death must have been such a shock that's why it's, you know, having an issue. So they take a quick break but continue the game. Tatsumi scores, and we get another memory from Shimada coming home to his sister that we saw in the previous flashback, who had been assaulted by a stalker. So we see her like crying in the corner, and she's like freaking out, and he's like, what the heck, who did this to you? And so it's kind of like interesting because Tatsumi and Shimada, they, due to their memories, they realize that they're both on these kind of revenge missions. You know, Tatsumi to avenge the death of his wife, and Shimada to avenge the assault of his sister. And like they almost like kind of like bond over that. It's really weird. But you know, previously,
you want revenge too? Yes, let's go and both get revenge together. Yeah, like, no,
like I'm like,
hold on.
Somehow they're besties now, but okay. But so they're kind of like, now that they remember that, they're like, oh, we have to go back to doing that. So, you know, Tatsumi, at least, who was once like kind of enthused to finish this game to figure out more about Deckham and the bar they're at and the Quinn Deckham and things like that, they're suddenly like, we gotta get out of here. But they're interrupted by Deckham, who then is like, you know what, y'all are taking too long, so we're switching it up. And now the rules have changed that depending on what what the appendage, so it's like heart, eye, etc., that is on the puck they're playing with. The person that scores it, the other person will have pain inflicted in that part of the body. So if Tatsumi scores,
crazy though.
What's that?
You said pain, but that was more than just pain. Like they were throwing up blood and crap. I was like, what? Why is this so much more deadly than like the Dark game, for instance? The Dark game was like, oh, it's a little shock, and they're like, oh, I felt that. No, they were out here freaking literally dying. Like every time someone scored,
that's
like,
true.
What's happening?
It did get really well. To be fair, by the end, the Dark game kind of got wild because you remember, like, the woman was coughing up blood and stuff like that. But I agree, it was much more like, that's why I feel like it's such a switch. Like maybe he was influenced by something to switch up how he is an arbiter. Because I definitely think as soon as he was like, okay, now you're gonna feel pain, it was like really intense. And I was like,
yeah, maybe because he knows he has the memories of them, you know, with the whole murder thing going on, right? They're like, all right, it's a murder place. You need to feel pain. Maybe that's what it is. I don't know.
Maybe.
Remember, he has human emotions.
That's true. Maybe he was a bit colored by that. So essentially they both explained to each other their revenge plans. And earlier they had talked about how when Decim had mentioned that it was taking really long for them to return their memories, the dark-haired woman who was also there the whole time, I did not mention her, sorry girl, but she was like, maybe you should give me the ability to see the memories. And so like he kind of puts in an order to do that. So at this point she gets the ability to see memories and she is shook. But we find out, that's the moment we find out that they're actually both killers. Cause she's able to go through the memories. Dun, 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 dun. And that's kind of, you know, the big moment that episode leaves off on. So, thoughts? Keep in mind, we don't know how or who they murdered yet. So
these ninjas be wildin'.
True. Everyone's crazy.
It's like, why we gotta do this? Why you gotta be all crazy like this? Why is it a chapter like this? Why are you a murderer? Great, I mean, I understand why, but still, why you gotta be like this?
Honestly, it was just, yeah, it was kind of crazy. I kind of like this episode. I don't know, I really like the way in this story in general, how it's like both like kind of like, you know, a thought-provoking show, but also kind of like a murder mystery, because since the characters only, you know, get their memories back bit by bit, it's like you as the audience is sitting there guessing what exactly are we going to see in these memories and what exactly does that mean, and like even if we get like to see the first two flashbacks, how that corresponds with what we're going to see later. So I really liked that, was like, you know, exemplified in this show, because we just kept seeing more and more, even in the second part that kind of closes this whole story. I don't know, I thought that was really interesting.
Yeah, I also liked what we got when it came to Mysterious Girl actually getting the memories and her getting bodied by it, but it's the fact that she ended up we got to see like an insight on how these memories kind of like come to play. And yeah, it's very jumbled, like how Decim was saying, so that's why they can't necessarily use it as a full judgment, because it's not all pieced together. Also considering the fact that with Quinn, how she tries to compile all the memories, she says herself that it's kind of hard to try to condense it all and make it make sense. So that's why we get so many like all these missing memories, or they're all jumbled around in the first place. So she obviously, truth be told, she ain't doing that good of a job at putting this stuff together so they can freaking do this properly. So yeah, that's a little insight right there.
yeah, we learned that they come in jumbled, and I thought that was kind of interesting, because I know Decim early on had talked about, you know, how it's hard, and I thought it was just because, oh well, people are biased in their memories, or maybe like there's more explanation because you only get one point of view when you see a situation through one person's memories. But yeah, learning that it's literally because it does not make sense, it's misordered, it's random scenes and things like that, like it makes like a lot more sense why like they can't just rely on memories and things like that for you know, trying to determine somebody's nature and things like that. So, you know, it gives a bit more weight to like the fact that this arbitration is very important, and, you know, even if they don't have it perfect, you know, it's still like a necessary process, I guess you would say, you know, to actually determine who the person was. I understand the idea that you need something else, because obviously the memories aren't going to cut it. Now, their current way of doing it, obviously that needs help, because it's like you can't have people that don't experience life be the only ones arbitrating. But the idea that if they're gonna do this void, you know, reincarnation thing, then like, you know, it can't just be memories, because it's like it won't make sense. It will be even worse than, you know, what they currently have, you know. So I don't know. That's what I kind of thought about it. I'm gonna jump into chat though, because it seems on fire.
Oh yeah.
Quet says the murder is definitely the work of a Stan user. Goodbye. Wrong anime. Let's see. In terms of like okay. You would think a detective wouldn't promote murder. LOL. You know, you gotta switch it up. That's where
you're wrong. They've seen so much death that they're like, you know what? I think some of these suckers need to go. I think I could be the judge, jury, and executioner.
He really was like, I think I'm just gonna do it all. Like, I think I'm literally gonna wait until you become a murderer so I can literally judge, jury, and execute you. Leanne says, my mind was racing at the end of the episode. Yes, I think that was a great twist. This show is so good. That was such a good twist. To have it. Sorry, I was just very enthusiastic.
I was like, did you start getting memories from?
Yeah, I was gonna say. I saw the memories too. But no, that was so good. Like, because like the way that it was given to us, it was like, it made it seem like one person was the bad one. And you know what? Sorry, but this is another point that I wanted to point out. I thought it was quite interesting because, you know, the dark-haired woman, she was very, very concerned with the fact that one of them was a murderer. Like, she kept making, like, note of it. And she, like, you know, she even told Decim to not use the remote because she was wary of how, like, you know, somebody who was crazy enough to kill would, like, act because of that. And I thought it was interesting because Decim was like, you know, killer or innocent, there's no one who can't be judged. And it was almost just like, he's like, you know, even this person did kill, I'm interested to see how they behave now. And I thought that was really interesting because I feel like it kind of goes back to like the whole, like, you know, is there any crime that's not like how do you say, like, rehabitable, or like, you know, like, is there something where somebody's just bad beyond return and it doesn't matter what they do after the fact? Like, if that person murdered, but then when he came to, you know, Quinn Decim, he was very like repentive, blah blah, would that deserve a place in reincarnation? Or it's like, oh, you've done something that's just like, it's done and stuff like that. So I felt like, you know, somewhat the dark-haired woman in Decim kind of represented two sides, where it was like she was just kind of like, well, this person's a murderer, so I already know they're gonna be bullcrap. But like Decim was still, even if it was to pull out the darkness, he was still interested in seeing how they behaved, you know, outside of whatever they may have done when they were alive. So I thought that was interesting. Yeah,
well, redeemable. That's the thing about it too, because like when it comes to the mysterious girl, that's what kind of made me kind of like nervous about her getting the memories in the first place, because she was already like so certain, it seemed, that, you know, obviously the person that's a murderer is one that we need to really be cautious of, and like we need to just get rid of him. Why are we even pretty much doing this game, technically speaking? Is kind of what she was kind of already in the process of thinking. And it's like, no, ironically enough, Decim was kind of spitting here a little bit and actually was like, you know what, we need to see how this whole thing was actually going to play out, because ultimately the decision that was made, I felt like was the correct one, you know, because there was a decision that was made at the end of episode 9. We actually see where they went, and I'm just wondering, like I said, it's weird to see how she was kind of reacting on a lot of that stuff, but she didn't have all the information. But that's what I'm trying to say. That's where human emotion kind of starts to come in too much, because she already had preconceived notions, already thinking, just from the fact that there's a murder happening. So, see, human emotions don't always work out as they should.
Right? It was a nice little nod to the fact that, you know, this whole time we've been debating whether somebody who doesn't experience human emotion really should have the right to judge people. But then it's like, well, you know, humans can sometimes let like their own biases also poorly influence how somebody should be judged. So I feel like it was cool that they kind of like made a note of that through like how we saw her reaction to, you know, somebody being a murderer. I'm gonna jump back in the chat, guys. I'm so sorry. Andy says it was crazy because you end up feeling sorry for these two guys and almost like you're rooting for justice, but then things take a turn. I agree. Yeah.
Interesting. When you rooting for both of them? How you rooting for both of them? How can you root For the detective.
Well, I guess maybe up until a point.
Explanation on this.
Maybe up until a point. And we'll discuss it when we get in the next, when we start talking about the next.
Hey, we're already there. We're already right there. Like, might as well just try to condense this thing, because there is a talking point I have with this. I'm curious what your thoughts are.
Okay, I'm just gonna read this last one. Also, I love how this judgment takes up 2 episodes and how it ties to the overall story. I agree. So let's get into part 2, episode 9 of this story. So like we just said, we left off learning that both of them both killed somebody. So they're kind of talking. They kind of get this idea. We get this idea that like they're both very pro killing, you know, the person that they loved. And so we see Shimada killed his sister Stalker. And we kind of see that after killing her stalker, he goes back, talks to his sister, and she's like, you know, there was a stalker, but there was also somebody who's watching. So he also makes it a very important part of his revenge to kill that person was watching, who was watching. We also see that Tatsumi killed the man who killed his wife. And after that memory comes back to Tatsumi, he kind of passes out. So at that point, Shimada doesn't really want to play anymore because he's seeing how, you know, when he scores, it's hurting Tatsumi. But the thing is, Tatsumi is kind of crazy because he's like, no, you gotta like do this and then like so we could get out of here so you can revenge your sister. And then he's like, but this, I'm literally causing you harm. You just passed out, old man. And he's like, no, keep going. You gotta revenge your sister. So I would say, if anything, at least Tatsumi is consistent. Like, he's like, kill everyone for justice, even if it means me. Like,
let me be the martyr for your justice. You need to do this.
I was like, I love an consistent insano. Like, he was at least like, take us all out. But yeah, so they keep playing because even Deckham's like, yeah, that's cute, but y'all gotta hurry up. Men. Yeah. But I love insane men. I appreciate some consistency, even if it's from an insane person. But yeah, so, you know, they keep playing. Shimada scores, wins the games. Tatsumi realizes he's dead and gets his flashback of his murder, which is where we find out that the person who actually killed Tatsumi the detective was Shimada. So we kind of get this whole story, dun 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 dun, which y'all, reactions please in the chat where that happened, because I was just like, I was still trying to figure it out. I figured that's what happened at one point. Like, I think Break, maybe you can weigh in. Did you think it was pretty obvious at some point that it was like, okay, Tatsumi?
Oh, no, I didn't think he was actually gonna be the one over there in the dark, like in the shadows, looking while the action was going on. Like, it's like, oh, you, bro, like, don't just stand there. But given his logic and reasoning, I see why he was just standing there, just letting it happen. And I'm like, bro, this dude kind of trash. Detective? I don't know, man. Yeah,
we learned, like, I feel like there was like 12 red herring reveals, twists in this, because I feel like as we got on, it became more and more crazier. So we find out that after killing his wife, killing his wife's killer, Tatsumi, imagine, he would. He's like,
bro, what? After my wife died because I killed her, it changed everything. You know, like, what?
The game changed. He seems crazy now. But essentially, after he killed his wife's killer, he kind of, went on this kind of like, I don't know, Mission Impossible kind of tirade where he was like, it needs to be me that clears out the scum. And so he was actually investigating the stalker that ended up being the person who assaulted Shimada's sister. But the thing is, he did witness the assault, but he kind of let it happen. And his reasoning was kind of that, like, he wanted, it had to let it happen to justify him killing him. So it's kind of like he had to, like, let, the worst of the worst with this stalker come out, and then he was going to turn around and kill him. He straight up says to Shimada, the reason why I didn't help your sister is because then I couldn't kill her. And so essentially what happened is that Shimada had killed the stalker, and then while on investigating and coming in to kill the stalker himself, Tatsumi comes in and then he kills Tatsumi. And so I didn't get this at first, but apparently they died at the same time because, like, in the struggle they both got hurt. So that's how they died simultaneously. So what was your thought? What was your thought in this, in Tatsumi's explanation, the detective's explanation as to why he let Shimada's sister suffer.
So see, that's the talking point that I wanted to bring up because I am curious. Because I mean, the way I'm going to be like double advocate a little bit because like you look at it, he's not necessarily wrong in what he's saying when it comes to. No, wait, let me finish. Don't look like that. Because in order for you to judge, right? To judge, you need a culprit. You need someone to actually do a crime, correct? So in that sense of what he's thinking, I mean, the crime has to happen so then he can then do something, basically, right? Because he can try to stop it, like he was saying, right? He can stop that fight, but he's a known stalker that is like coming after women. So if it wasn't your sister that day, it could have been some other day that would have happened. And it's like, instead of doing all this, make sure he has actual evidence to actually see him doing something, so then he can justify doing what he's going to do next, which is kill. So I mean, I get like the thought process of what he had. It's not right. Okay, I just want to throw it out there because it's definitely not right to do that. Try to save as much as you can, sucker. Like, what are you doing? But I get where he was trying to come from in that sense, because you need the crime to happen. You need something to happen so you can justify what you're gonna do after the fact, or you need to like lock him up or whatever the case is. What you're trying to do. The whole point is you need evidence, right?
No, and funny enough and kind of sad, that reasoning, the way that Detective Tatsumi was talking is actually not far from how at least it works in America. There's been a lot of cases where people have had like stalkers or harassment, and when they've tried to report it, they've literally gotten told by the police they can't really do anything until that person actually like physically assaults you or physically hurts you or harasses you or something like that. And unfortunately, a lot of times that has led to literally nothing being done until that person has been killed or something like that. So that's an interesting point because it actually is how it works in real life. So it's just like quite sad that somebody with such a flawed, in the show, we see it as such a flawed reasoning. It's not that far off from what happens in everyday life. Like it's really sad.
I mean, at the end of the day, you can try to listen to one's personal like situation, but if there's no evidence to back anything up, it's just you could be just lying. You could be just saying anything is the thing, because humans do lie a lot. So it's like it becomes a hard thing. But they should at least still try to like investigate and check. Granted, ironically enough, that dude was investigating this, so it's not like he didn't have it's not like he didn't have an idea that this dude was already doing something already. So it's like, to me, his sister didn't need to be in that situation because he already knew something was up with that guy. That's where his logic kind of fell off right there, or off the freaking bridge, because he's already done things before this time. So it's like, why did you sit there and watch that again? Like,
exactly.
What are you doing, sir?
Yeah, I really don't understand. Like, this is the thing. Like, I don't understand his reasoning because, like, you didn't have to sit there and watch her get pummeled for the full pummeling. Him hitting her once or twice would have been, like, proof enough that he assaulted her. But you let her ass get pummeled. So that's why I'm just kind of like, nah, you're a weirdo. Because it's just like because the thing is, I feel like he wanted, like, a whole justification for killing this man. And I think it's like, oh, I wanted her to be beaten to a pulp. So it's like when he gets his just desserts, it's his just desserts. Like, maybe not many people would like consider if he like punched her once or slapped her around a couple times worthy, but like the condition she was in. And I'm like, and that's when it goes from you trying to get justice to you trying to be like a hero, which is very self-serving. And when I can't even like really get behind any form of what he's trying to push as like, I'm just trying to clean the world on some light Yakumi's, uncle type stuff. like, so yeah, like I see what he means, that there has to be a crime for there has to be a victim for there to be like a criminal or whatever, in some cases. But like, I just didn't buy it because it was just like, no, you did not have to watch her get we all saw her. She had a black eye and all. It did not have to get that far.
And that's crazy too, because like, I mean, it's like the whole like Yagami effect. But yeah, he didn't have to let any of that ultimately happen. And it's his whole thought process and system is very flawed. But like I can say, at the end of the day, I understand that reasoning, that slight reasoning there. He just again, he's very self-serving. That was like the main problem. And that's what ends up happening. You can tell even when after he got that revenge, just like I said, oh, I heard my wife say thank you. Like, you acting crazy now. You lost your goddamn mind. You're gone. You're gone. It's over. like once you heard those voices in your head, it's over for you.
Yeah.
So yeah, he was just very self-serving, and That's why he started smiling after he killed the person. He's like, yes, this felt good. I feel like I'm doing good today. Yeah.
It was just so scary. Yeah. Leanne says, at first I thought Shimada killed the detective because when we thought it was only one killer, but then when we got a double killer reveal and I got distracted. Yeah, that was pretty crazy. It was such a good twist. It was really twisted reasoning, but it isn't completely wrong. I get his reasoning. It's still shitty. Very true. I don't know. I guess I'm just... I hate him! Anyway, jumping back into the plot. So, you know, that Shimada is like wilding out and he's just like, what the F, you know, this is crazy. And so he's like, you know, I'm gonna kill you, which is funny because, you know, at this point they realize they're like both dead or whatever, but he's like, I still want to kill you again, I guess. So we got this like really interesting kind of dilemma moment thing where, you know, Decim is like, oh yeah, go kill him. Like, he literally strings him up in his little spider strings and things like that, you know, retrieves the original knife he kills him with and is like, you know, setting it up, you know, the whole scenario so Shimada can like, you know, kill him. And it's really weird because like the detective's like, yeah, kill me. Woo, revenge.
Exactly, revenge. Do it, sucker. Come on. Don't be afraid. Follow through.
Like,
be just like me.
When you look up unhinged in the dictionary, you're gonna see a picture of that detective because I don't even know. But the dark-haired woman, she starts to, you know, draw parallels between, you know, how the detective is basically like, oh, it was necessary for me to just watch your sister get beat because I had to, you know, drag the whole thing out so I could properly judge, you know, this person before I attempted to kill them. And the dark-haired woman relates it back to how Decim does the same thing. Like, you're getting this to like literally the lowest it can, and your reasoning is that you need it to properly judge who these people are. And, you know, we get this idea, you know, get this concept from the dark-haired woman, like, you know, how do you really have, you know, the ability to pass judgment on that when you're purposely trying to make them act as horrible as possible? And I was like,
to that, Tatsumi did also end up saying with it that, hey, under any circumstance, anybody can turn evil and kill somebody. It just all depends on the right circumstances to put them in. So,
and I feel like
what you were saying.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I feel like we've been saying that from like the beginning. Like, I feel like we've been always talking about like, oh, you know, this person did a bad thing, but like, who are we to say that we want to act like that? And so I'm just like, I love it. Like, I was talking to Break, I don't 100% love the fact that like they're so heavy-handed with just pointing out like the morals and points they're trying to get across, but it is satisfying, you know, in some instances to hear it from the characters. It's like,
yeah.
Andy says, I forgot how intense that ending was. Decim knows he's baiting folks, lol. Yeah, the comparison between Decim and the detective, they're both people whose goal is to judge others, but at what cost? That's perfectly put. What at what cost? Like in this instance of the detective, he let that girl get beat just to prove a point, and in the instance of Decim, he lets people like, you know, get to the very rock bottom, like mentally, just to be like, oh, okay, you're a bad person because I put you in a really stressful, you know, horrible situation and you failed. Like, you know.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Though this decision that was that happened at the end of this episode was a very interesting one because you could have saved himself, but it happened. He didn't do that. And it's crazy given that he loved his sister so much. So
yeah, it was yeah. So just for like a small recap, Break's referring to the fact that we have this moment where, you know, Shimada has to decide if he wants to stab the man, which is basically like ensuring that he's gonna go to the void because it's like he succumbed to the darkness, and he even gets a bit of a crutch because the dark-haired woman basically airs out everything. She's like, listen, you know, it's not really heaven or hell, it's going to the void versus being reincarnated. If you choose like not to, like this man Decim, he's judging you. If you choose not to, like, you know, hit rock bottom, there's a chance that you might be reincarnated and see your sister in some capacity, but if you don't do that, then it's, you know, it's over for you. And so like we this was probably one of the best being switches of the story because we do get we do get a section where that breaks him and he's breaking down crying, but ultimately the detective gets under his skin and says something along the lines of like, you know, the whole point is like, if you can't save somebody, the least you can do is like kill the person who harmed them, and that's enough to set him off. And he stabs the hockey pucks, which I did not mention. He wasn't actually stabbing the person, he was stabbing the hockey pucks.
Yeah.
And like delivers him this
So he was feeling all the pain.
Yeah, all the pain. Yeah.
Just
so
it's all the
this was a quite sad episode because, you know, we saw somebody who maybe had a chance. Like, we saw somebody who was like, you know, just far gone in the detective, but then we also saw somebody who was teetering. Like, yes, they did horrible things, they killed 2 people including one of the person, and they had this it was almost like he had this chance to replay at least that portion of, you know, what he did to the man when they were living, but instead of turning over a new leaf, he decides that it's better, the revenge was more worth it, even though it didn't mean anything.
Character study right here. There's a whole character study right there, given that
yes,
he had an option. He had information that no one else had to do. Like, this is perfect for him. He could have just like not do it, but revenge was just too strong there. And it kind of goes back to like human nature, right? Like, you know, at the end of the day, human nature is supposed to be chaotic, right? That's what the thought process that like even Ginty has. That's why you don't like humans. So this is like something Ginty expects humans and ultimately end up doing, and he falls right in line with a lot of people that with the way they think, and that's why they judge in the way they think in the first place, because he's like a perfect example where these humans do fall into that category. And it's just it's sad because it's like if you had a chance to try to get reincarnated, why wouldn't you not take that opportunity?
Exactly.
The opportunity. But at the same time, was he already unhinged, given that, again, yeah, he killed 2 suckers. Like, the detective only killed 1 dude, and that we know of. So, I mean, I don't know how much he's actually killed, because, I mean, already super unhinged, but you can see even in Shimada's face, right, that after he did that, he felt satisfied, and he's like, "I'm so glad I protected my sister." Starts smiling. He's like, "He, I did good." So I was like, "Well, there it is."
Yeah, it's crazy because if you think about it from our like rational perspective, like it doesn't make sense. Y'all are already dead. Like, you already got to kill him in real life. That's why you guys are here in the first place. If you hadn't have done that, there might have been a better chance if you. Even if, like, you know, it's not, you're obviously not going to be her older brother, but like being reincarnated and blah, blah, but still he succumbed to, you know, the person who wanted to get that revenge again. And like, it's so weird because even as like a fellow human, it doesn't make sense. It was like all the odds were better in your favor, or the, you know, if you didn't kill him, like your life post this would have been, you know, the chances of it being better would be so better, but you still succumbed to it. But also it's like, well, I'm not sitting in front of the person who let my sister get assaulted, you know? So it's just like, again, like it plays into the idea that like human emotions are so complicated, but it definitely was like depressing to see that he succumbed to like that kind of desire. I don't even want to call it evilness per se, but just that like dark desire to want to just see this man that did his sister wrong suffer. But yeah. I'm gonna hop into chat.
It was beautiful though. It was beautiful.
It's very beautiful.
They had the ending at the end. I'm not gonna make it. I was like, oh no. But this was my favorite episode because when that happened, I was like 10 out of 10. This was 10 out of 10. Like once I saw that the first time when I watched it, I was like, this show right here is wild as heck. Like, bro, I did not see this sucker doing this. Like, what is wrong with you? Both of them suckers smiling, like, yeah, this is exactly what I want to do. It was crazy.
I'm that crazy detective, like being like a force to like help push this kid over the edge. That just pissed me off. I was like, somebody put a muzzle on him, please. Declan, put a muzzle on him. We don't need to hear from him anymore. It really ticked me off. But yeah.
Appa?
Also, I want to say that like as much as like I get why she did it, I do think that it's a bit. If Shimada would have been swayed by dark-haired woman's you know, her spiel when she told her, came clean about what this is, I feel like would that even really count towards him being a better person, because he kind of knew the benefits and how it could like favor him if he didn't stab the guy. So because he was given this information that usually people aren't given, does that warrant him still to be reincarnated or be seen in like a better light when he was doing it because it would benefit him?
I don't think so. Yeah, it's this thing. I wouldn't. If it was me at that point, like I couldn't do it because you already spilled the whole beans. There's no reason to do it because now he's just doing this solely for the fact that he can possibly come back again. But also at the end of this episode, you saw that ultimately it looks like both of them went to the void. Yeah. They deserve that crap.
That crazy ass detective, he has a whole mansion in the void. That is his home. That is his house. He was waiting on it. He knew what it was about to be. He already knew. Yeah, and he was probably like, well, yeah, he was like, it's where I belong. Deuces. See y'all at the void. I'm gonna jump in on the chat real quick. Andy said it's sad to see how hard the brother worked for and loved his sister. In the end, after torturing the detective, he has this evil smile after getting his revenge. It's really haunting. Yeah, I thought we would see like a, you know, I did what needed to be done, even if this isn't great, but seeing like his satisfaction and kind of like paralleling how we saw the reaction to the detective after he killed his wife's killer. Yeah, it was just like, complete the cycle.
Oh, yeah.
Andy also said, like I mentioned earlier, this case plays a big part in the overall story. Deckham is starting to question his role ever since the woman got there, and with his implanted human emotions, where will it take him? Yeah.
Oh, that's true too. Because he also once that whole thing was going on, and how the mysterious woman was kind of like breaking it down and judging him, basically, he was like, oh yeah. He's like, oh my god. Because I thought I was doing the right thing, but apparently not.
Oh, because Miss dark-haired woman, she was like, all right, you're finna get dragged, and she went into his like, there were so many great, and I think I took notes about it, so we'll discuss a little later, but there were so many good quotes that I was just like, yes, Hunty, slay, drag her, because it was just like, yeah, read him, like, I know he's you know, whatever, but like, read him. Andre says, I can't lie and say I wouldn't mug up if they hurt my sister. Oh, beat a mug if they hurt my sister. Like, yeah, and that's the thing. It's really, really hard. Because even looking at the kid, it's just like you want to be like, dummy, why did you do that? But it's just like he was hurting in a way that I unfortunately can only empathize with, not really sympathize with, because I haven't.
I mean, he was not just as like older brother to you know, to the sister and everything. He's kind of like a father figure too, because you know, parents are not there no more, and he has to take care of her. So there's a stronger connection, even further beyond just that. So yeah, it was quite sad. So I'm gonna go to some notes that I had. So I already mentioned this, but we found out that the memories of the dead are just jumbled, which is why they can't rely on the memories for accurate picture. You had Tatsumi being so obsessed with the idea with revenge, he didn't care if Shimada had to hurt him in the process. Tatsumi wanted to see if his judgment the way through by waiting for the assaulter to kill harm his Shimada's sister, and how that was a metaphor for the flaws in the arbiter system. And just the idea that seeing what happens when things get bad as possible is a weird way to judge people. The dark-haired woman, she made this beautiful comment in relation to the process of arbitering, which makes you have to pull out like the darkest parts of a person. She said, everyone has to live with the things they committed, and everyone bears some sort of hatred. You just inflame it and then use that to judge people. It's true. Deckham comes up in here, instigates, well, all the arbiters, and then they're just like, so you're the worst person. The way I kind of see it, and this is obviously not as intense, but it's like when a troll, like you're on social media, right? And then there's a troll who's like every single day, like they'll tweet to like maybe like a celebrity, you're so ugly, you're so fat, you're so stupid, you're a failure, blah, blah, blah. And then one day, the celebrity's like, F you know, piece of, and blah, blah, blah. And then they're suddenly like, geez, I didn't know you had a bad attitude. Like, geez, you're so like, you're so high strung. It's like, yeah, well, yeah, I'm gonna burst if every day, or you're like throwing harassment at me daily. Like, why does that surprise you that I'm going to act in a not nice manner if you treat me or put me in a situation where I feel like that's what I need to react like? So it's kind of weird. It's such a weird way.
you know.
Yeah, and then if they do say something too, depending on what they say, like, oh, it's not to cancel them because you shouldn't be saying that to your fans and everything. How are you a fan and you out here just being disrespectful 100% of the time? Like 100% of the time, there's not a moment what you say that's even nice. Like, bro, get the heck out of here. Like, I don't understand how this happens, but this happens all the goddamn time, unfortunately, because you don't get to see everything that Sucker was doing though. We are once something is out and it's framed in a certain way, you can't change the framework. That's it. So I mean, I guess I can get the analogy there because it's like you're kind of like drawing out the bad mood basically out of them because you keep constantly picking at them. It's like someone poking you. You keep poking and tell them to stop, but they just keep doing it, and then you punch them in the face because you told them to stop many a time, but you didn't listen. So now you're getting a knuckle sandwich. So like,
yeah, but it's so weird. It's like to purposely agitate somebody and then be like, oh, you're acting mad because I agitated you? Tisk tisk. And so that's why I love that whole scene where the dark-haired woman just airs him out. And, she points out you've never been part of the living world. Like, you don't know about things like grief and stuff like that. So once again, who are you to judge?
And then said, I think I do.
Oh, yeah.
He did say that. He's like, actually, I do.
And I was like, okay, girl. But yeah. And then this beautiful line I like where she's like, there's as many emotion as there are people, and she kind of goes back to like the different people that were went through arbitration at the Quindecum, and like she was like, yeah, like letting your anger, succumbing to your anger and like letting that turn you to like hate or whatever, or like overcoming your fear for love and stuff. Like it's just like they're just different circumstances and how people respond to them. But like it's like even like it kind of ties into what that guy says about like put somebody in a brutal situation, you don't know what they're gonna do. Like everyone's different, they might react to something different, and just because person A may have gotten abused and became like this really compassionate lawyer, and person B may have gotten abused and became like a scammer on the street or whatever, they're both like valid reactions. Like it's not that one person's a better person, it's just like different reactions. So yeah,
always cause and effect.
True. Yeah,
but amazing freaking episodes. Okay, I'll throw it out there.
True that. I agree. Very beautiful. I still think I like the one with the reality show mom and the guy who was adopted. I still think I like that one a little bit better, but this definitely was like up there as well.
See, that's the debate I was having because I like rewatching it and doing it like this. There's some things I didn't even catch and notice myself rewatching that particular episode. I didn't realize how good the episode actually was. So it's like, even though I knew this episode, these two parts right here are going to be bangers when I actually finally got into it. I thought it was episode 10 that was going to do this, but I was wrong. So I'm also glad we're talking about this right now. But it's like, I really love this episode. But, the episode was really good. The other one was really good. That's why the show, honestly, I think I gave it an 8 last time. This is looking like a 9 for me after the show. The show's really, really, really good. And the tie-ins and, the philosophy and the amount of stuff we can talk about with the show it's incredible.
That's so true.
I'm glad I'm watching this.
Yeah.
I don't know if I said this already, but I'm glad I'm watching it.
Yeah, again, to the people who voted for it, it took you a couple tries, but we finally got there. This is a great recommendation, even though I have to be a bit depressed at least for an hour and like 10 minutes every week. It's worth it for the discussion.
She has a tear in her eye permanently every time she watches
this. Yeah, and one thing I wanted to also point out is that like in the comment section for episode 9, I noticed a lot of people, comment section on YouTube, I noticed a lot of people comparing this show to Death Note, and particularly the detective view on the world versus Light's view on the world. And I finally I think I finally see why every time I type in shows like Death Note, this one pops up, because even aside from the comparison of Light and Detective, the way that the show makes you think about like good and evil and right and wrong, and who's redeemable and who's not, and what punishment should mean is very similar to Death Note.
Yes,
and in a good way.
Yes.
So
yes,
I enjoyed that.
Death Note's one of my favorite series, so this is why this show is right in my lanes. If you're a Death Note fan, definitely go and watch this show next, because obviously ties in. It's nice.
Or if you've never watched Death Note and you're watching this show now with us, you should watch Death Note because I think you'll like it.
Yes, yes, yes.
Yeah, I'm scared because if these episodes are, because I would assume like the finale is when it just like blows your mind. So I was like, I can't get more depressed than this Death Parade, please, please.
I'm looking forward to it. I can't quite remember exactly what happened at the end either, so I'm like, this is actually going to be interesting.
Ooh.
I want to see how this goes.
That's always exciting. So it's going to be new for you too a bit because you don't remember.
Oh yeah,
that's exciting.
Oh yeah. There was something I actually noticed, by the way. I just want to throw this out here. There's another thing I noticed. I'm again rewatching this stuff, but it's like in the opening. There's another tie-in to Mr. Girl's past actually in the opening, and it's like right in your face. I didn't even realize it. I was like, oh, it was there the whole time. Interesting. But I guess you wouldn't notice it until... Actually, no, you couldn't actually notice it. Because you did see a wardrobe. But I'll say that. That's all I'll say then, actually.
Well, I guess if we don't have any context for it, we probably wouldn't really know. But, I mean, I know
there's a slight context because, like I said, there's a wardrobe thing that happens. Like, you can kind of piece it together a little bit now I'm thinking about it.
Well, I missed that, y'all. So I guess I'm just going to have to wait till it's revealed. But that's interesting. I love that, though, in general with openings where it's like when you first see it, it's like, I don't know any of these characters, blah, blah. But then as you get through the show, it's like, oh, you know, that's who that is. And that's what that means. I think that's always cool when they do that with openings.
That's how you know you have a good opening. It's not just like the banger of the song itself, but the actual visuals do matter.
That's true. Wait, Andre said something about the comparison. Was it Andre or was it Andy? Oh, Andre said, really? I would have compared it to Psychopath Pass than Death Note. Well, I've never watched Psychopaths, but I guess it has the same good and evil, like, because I know there's a whole plot about people who are inherently, like, the idea of somebody being like inherently good or inherently having the capacity to be evil, and whether you should throw those people in jail right away.
Like how that show is that they got dominators, and those dominators pretty much check your psyche level. Basically, if your psyche is a little too high, your demon's a threat, which means you can get dominated by the dominators because it'll blow you up and die. So yeah, it's pretty extreme. They have a system set up to where they check your psyche at all times. Basically, this is how the society works. And when you're a good person in society, your levels are all at a nice little rate. Even in, like, I guess stressful moments, you're not supposed to let it rise up too much, which is freaking crap, by the way, because that rises your levels, and if it goes up too high while you're stressed out, the dominators can kill you. Those people that'll come through, they'll kill you then, because there is no, like, they're not really much of a second chance, technically speaking, in their system, because their system's supposed to be perfect, but that's the whole thing. Their system's flawed, and how the characters are, they're trying to, like, you know, fix some of the system, because the system obviously is not right. So that's why the show, you got to see why you can make the comparison, because it also goes into how can you really truly judge these people based off of just this type of system, kind of like how Death Parade is, because the system is, honestly, I think that system's worse than what Death Parade is doing, to be honest with you. But yeah, I see the comparisons there. That's another show that you probably should check out at some point if you haven't already. Granted, I heard, I think the second season, it starts to fall off. Like, it's not as good as the first season.
I hate that. I always hate that. Yeah. I mean, my sister, she's been recommending that show to me since like 1932. Like, literally, she's been so. I really need to buckle down and watch it. But like, I'm never in the mood when I haven't tried for a while, but I feel like the couple of times I've tried, I've maybe gotten through like 1 and 2, and then kind of just gave up. But it is something that's right my alley, because I like those kind of psychological, you know, make you think type things. But yeah, I definitely actually see, you know, I kind of see your point, Andre, that it seems, I think it's both, because I think there's something to say with, like, even if somebody did bad, does Kira have the right to send them to death? Like, it's kind of the same, like, you know, does the arbiters have a right to choose somebody to go to the void or otherwise? But I can see how it, like, even more closely aligns with Psychopaths. So yeah.
Because based off its system, but Light is just one person. So, I mean, again,
the arbiters are just one person.
He only kills criminals. Remember that. He only kills criminals, people that have done bad.
Okay. Andre says, seeing what Break talking about in the opening, I thought it was one of those random opening scenes that have nothing to do with the show. But after watching the finale, it blew my mind. Dang, y'all keep dropping hints. I'm kind of like,
yeah, this is why I love this chat right now. Like, if I bring something up and I just be very vague, some of you guys actually pick it up, and she
I
doesn't
feel
know
left
yet.
out.
She doesn't know.
I feel left out.
It's okay.
So,
Yes.
before we wrap up, of course, we have to do the fan favorite segment, which is, what did you guys watch this week? I would like to know.
Ooh. Okay, so I'm gonna start. Right.
Mm-hmm.
I finished Megalobox. I keep talking about the show, but I finished it finally. Honestly, putting it all together, this is like a 9 out of 10 series. I really love the show. The ending was really, really good. Had a mull over it for a minute because I got a little annoyed at first, but then I thought about it and I'm like, you know what, this is actually really nice. They did a good job. It's such a good show. It's such a good show. I didn't expect this. I didn't think Megalobox needed a second season, but thank God they made another season because it just made the show 10 times better. Because I thought the show was like a 7 at most, but that second season put it over the top. So I finished that show there, and I watched Luca. There's also that too. So I finally watched that movie.
Yay! What did you think?
It was good. I liked it a lot, actually. It was, it hit me right in the heart right there. I was like, I feel that.
Everyone watch Luca.
I could understand that. Yes. Luca's a good movie. And I watched another movie, but I keep forgetting what the goddamn name is. It had freaking Nick Cannon in it, but I can't remember what the goddamn movie was. I watched it on the 4th of July. No, the reason why I don't remember it because the movie wasn't good. Like, it was alright. Like, there ain't no reason for me to promote it. So, like, it is what it is.
You heard that, Nick Cannon? He's coming for you. Just kidding. Nick Cannon probably watches, right? Yeah. Okay. Yeah. But was it an old?
Wild and Out. Put us on Wild and Out. I'm just kidding. Don't do it. Yeah. I'm not ready.
Wait, Quetzal said it was Jumanji. What? Was it?
Not Jumanji. It's like no.
Okay, I was gonna say, I don't remember the Nick Cannon version of that movie, but okay.
I don't know how I like that movie, honestly. I feel like I watched something else, but I can't remember what it was. So I think that's it for now. I think that's it. What about you?
So I watched a couple things and I immediately forgot all of them. So I'll just watch the one that I was currently watching today. So this is a K-drama, y'all. Some of y'all might have seen me tweet about it, but I've been watching this K-drama called Oh My Venus. It's one of those kind of like revenge plot, not really revenge plot. It's basically about a girl who she was like considered a goddess because she was really, really pretty growing up. But despite everyone being like, oh, you should be an actress, you should be a beauty queen, she wanted to be a lawyer. So we meet her 15 years later and she's become a lawyer. But I guess due to like all the stress of like lawyering and stuff like that, she doesn't look the way she used to. So she's not like slim, she's not considered beautiful and things like that. So it's kind of like this, like how her life starts to fall apart because of this. But then she meets this dude who happens to be like a kind of sweating with the oldies, Billy Blanks, like I can transform you. And it's kind of like a bunch of K-dramas be having like 8 different plots, so it's kind of hard to follow, but that's the like main plot that I'm following. And it's really, really funny. And I haven't watched a K-drama this campy in a while, so it's really funny just to, see kind of like a lot of the cliches and stuff. So that was for that. I also watched Moriarty the Patriot, which is an anime that's based off of the character James Moriarty from the Sherlock Holmes series. I was really excited because I was like, yeah, it's very interesting. I've only watched about 3 episodes. So far, the cases aren't that good, but I'm hoping it gets more juicier. But I think the concept of like, focusing on, Sherlock Holmes' arch nemesis and his story is very, very interesting. So I definitely do have high hopes for that one. I think it's about time we wrap up, but break before we go. Any last words?
Yes, actually. Andy, thank you for the follow. I saw you followed me off when I wasn't like streaming or anything, but thank you for the follow. I appreciate that.
All right.
How about you? Any last words?
Tomorrow. I feel like you really mean it. Wait, you've been waiting for this moment.
Yeah. I got lock and loaded.
So tomorrow, my rest of the streaming schedule for the rest of the week. Tomorrow I'll be on YouTube for the Daily Dose podcast with apparently featuring Break, but actually featuring Jazz, my co-host. I had a little mix up on my schedule that I posted. But yeah, so we'll be doing that. And then Friday will be like basically a free-for-all Friday. I don't really have anything planned, but I will be on Twitch on Friday, so it will be at 9 o'clock EST as usual. I think I'm starting to actually make like a reasonable schedule these days, which is fun. But it will be there. And yeah, I hope that you guys can make it, you know, stop by one of those 2 days. Thank you guys again so much for joining us on this week's Anime Club. We'll see you next time. Bye!